Hello everyone, my name is Holden Hardman. Thank you so much for joining me for another video. I wanted to share some of my thoughts on Infinity War because I wasn't able to be there for the My Friend Watches Infinity War for the first time. If you're new to the channel, I have a series with my friend Matt where we take a look at some movies, mostly pop culture, that he's never seen before. And I'm typically there with him and we kind of banter back and forth. But I wasn't there for Infinity War and I never got to share my thoughts on it. I don't want to drag it out, so I'm just going to list my points exactly as I would have if I was there with him. The first thing, like in one of the opening scenes where you see Hulk get just totally beaten by Thanos. I think Jeremy or Matt may have pointed out in the video of just how crazy that was, seeing him just being beaten. Even something like Thor Ragnarok, where he was like this champion and he was just known for never being beaten. I mean, he's the Hulk. And to see Thanos not even like panicky, but just by straight skill and strength beating him was crazy. It also shows just how strong Thanos is by comparison. And then I also think of at the end, and I have some other points on this later, when Captain America is holding back Thanos, even for just a brief second. Now granted, Thanos wasn't going like as strong as he could, but there was a moment where he's kind of makes like this face, oh, you're really actually trying to stop me. Love that. The death of Loki. I remember seeing that in theaters and feeling so different than his other deaths in Thor Dark World. And I know Matt's big criticism is that death has no meaning in the MCU. And to his credit, it does seem to be the case. It's been highlighted as we've been watching through the MCU. But them killing him so early, I think even before like the title sequence, I think set the stage for the stakes of the movie. It was the first time we saw Hulk and Thor rejoined with everybody since Civil War. So it had been like several years. So it was nice to kind of see them back in New York, back in the world. I love seeing Tony Stark and Doctor Strange banter back and forth. I think their personalities have such a wonderful clash between them. Speaking of which, Doctor Strange, so much more powerful, so much more committed. And I think in Civil War, you see the full evolution of his arc. He's still this kind of arrogant, don't take no crap kind of guy, but his motivation and specifically his selfishness is totally gone. We went from a guy who only thought about himself, only cared about his best interest, to a guy who literally said, as morbid as it may seem, if it comes to you or the child, I will not give up that stone. And he would give up his own life to protect the stone because he knows that if he doesn't, everyone will die. Now, obviously, that a little bit different happened, but that's where his heart is at. And I love that totally uncompromising attitude. The Iron Spider suit is very, very cool. I remember liking it, but it's one of those, I started getting burnt out with the overuse of CGI, and I think that sequence where the suit comes on him and he stands up there heroically, it looks awesome, it's great, but it lacks a sense of realism. To me, it felt like I wasn't seeing Spider-Man. I was seeing almost like a cartoon, an animation. That's been a general complaint, just like the overuse of CGI, and I think that scene really amplified it for me. It's very awesome to see, but it didn't feel real. I just have a quick note here about how I like the humor of Thor meeting the Guardians of the Galaxy and that whole, this is the body of a god and this is my voice. I love all that. This is just a side note, general, not necessarily for Infinity War, but when I was editing the video of the other guys and watching some additional clips, Bradley Cooper does not get enough credit for being Rocket. Rocket feels so real that I forget that there's an actor portraying him and bringing him to life, and that's Bradley Cooper. It's this unfortunate paradox because he makes the character feel so real, we almost forget that all this work went into it. Not just from him, but from the motion capture guy to the animation people, and of course him doing the voice. But because it's so real, we detach from the actor or the people that are contributing to making him so real. The return of Captain America. It's very film tropey, I thought, for him to walk out of the shadows like that. Man, it gets me every time. I love it. It's so epic. It's one of my favorite things. Captain America's personality change. Not so much a personality change as it is an attitude change. He's still so empathetic, but he's just so much more stoic now. He's just over all the crap and he just is fed up with it. So much so where he even threatened General Ross. Want to talk a little bit about the philosophy of Thanos. What he's saying makes a lot of sense. He uses the example of his home world, how they were running out of resources and he was the only one to be we have to do mass genocide, and everyone treated him like he was crazy, rightly so. But in Thanos' defense, he was right. His home world ended up getting destroyed and everybody ended up starving and dying off anyway. He also uses the example of Gamora's home world, where they were on the brink of collapse and then wiped out half of them, and then now they know nothing. The children know nothing but full bellies and peace, and it's all a great paradise. Still morally reprehensible, and we'll get into why Thanos was wrong. I know that there's this whole movement of Thanos was right, Thanos was wrong. We'll get into it. One thing that Jeremy said in the video, and I've heard this argument before, is why didn't Thanos just double the resources? There are a few reasons that I think that he didn't, or at least was not able to. The stones only work in the already existing universe. They can't violate the law that matter cannot be created nor destroyed. So he could not actually create matter. Thanos even says the universe is finite, and so he could not just infinitely make it bigger. Another reason I think he didn't do that is because of the population grows exponentially. So even if he doubled the resources, he would have to double it consistently, quicker and quicker and quicker, because the population would continue to grow and match that. So I think in Thanos' logic, it's better to divide and slow down consumption than to continue to produce more and more and try to keep up with that. As logical as some people make Thanos' argument out to be, he is still a psychopath, a complete and total psychopath. He's articulate, he's intelligent, and he's seemingly reasonable, but man, he is a manipulator. It's why I don't believe that his motivations are entirely altruistic, that he have to do this small evil for the greater good. I don't believe that. I don't buy that. This is a guy who physically and emotionally tortured his daughters, a daughter that he ended up sacrificing to get the Soul Stone. He dared Star-Lord to shoot her. Now, I know that he had control of the situation, but still, that's psychological. He has a complete lack of empathy. He is a textbook sociopath, psychopath, and a manipulator. Captain America's line is my own bygone Jim moment. I'm not looking for forgiveness, and I'm way past asking permission. Love it. He ends up going on to threaten General Ross, like, well, if you stand in our way, we'll fight you too. I love this Captain America attitude. How does Matt not like him? I don't get it. The only thing better than the Cap that we've come to know and love is that same Captain who's pissed off. This is a bit of a nitpick. Return of Bucky was a bit lackluster for me. It was teased in Black Panther. They even showed the new arm at the beginning of Infinity War. At least to me, they made it seem like he was going to be a bigger role, I guess, in the story at large. But he was just there with his little gun at the little battle and doing his part. It didn't warrant, I guess, the post-credit scene and the teasing of his return like that was going to be some huge comeback. He was just sort of there. I really enjoyed the space stuff with Iron Man, Strange, and Spider-Man. That was like fun seeing them do some stuff. The Maw, awesome villain, so powerful. I love those like articulate villains. I love like the Ultron Thanos. Maw was great. So evil, so powerful. I wish he didn't have to die. I would have loved to have seen him down the line. Thor getting Stormbreaker, so awesome. I know that this was touched on by the other guys, but I had to put my 2 cents in there too. I also love that Groot made the handle, but there's like that OCD part of me that's like, well, if you were going through all this trouble of restarting the star and Thor's having to hold it, why would you not have the handle like ready to go? Like... That drove me crazy. I was like, what do you mean, where's the handle? Did you not have it ready beforehand? Seeing Red Skull return in theaters was so awesome because it was something I was not expecting. Because I remember him like vanishing up into the 9 realms in the first Captain America and then like nothing sort of happening with that. Kind of like that guy in the very first Hulk movie that we've been waiting to see but nothing's happened with yet. So I thought that they just sort of like let that go. So it was so cool seeing him come back. Even though my understanding of him is that he's not really Red Skull. He's like a totally new entity that, I don't know. He's not like a Nazi. The death of Gamora. That was so heartbreaking to see. That was really rough for me. It wasn't just like the death aspect of it, but it was like that slow motion, him grabbing her and dragging her and her like trying to get free. It was just rough. Captain America and Black Panther together. Can I please just get a movie just of Captain America and Black Panther just doing stuff in Wakanda or in the war? I don't care where. I love their dynamic. I love watching them fight together. I love their like brotherly friendship. I love it. I want more of it. Thor's entrance to Wakanda. Goosebumps every time. That Avengers score just surging. I love it. One thing I think that attributes to Thanos' total craziness is his calmness. It feels so eerie, even like while the Battle of Wakanda is happening. He has this slow conversation with Doctor Strange on Titan. He kills half of Gamora's home planet, and he just calmly has this conversation with the child while people are getting slaughtered behind him. This guy's not a good dude. Thanos is not right, guys. I'm sorry. Speaking of Titan, I love the fight on Titan. I love seeing the Guardians with Spider-Man and Iron Man. I love seeing them all like work together. Let's talk about Star-Lord's choice. I remember when it first came out and people just blamed Star-Lord so hard, even started like getting mad at Chris Pratt, for stuff like that. And now I definitely think that there's like an aspect to blame. I mean, Tony Stark, even in the movie, was like, we've almost got it, dude. Just hold off a little longer, and he didn't. I will say that it fits his character, though. We've seen Star-Lord respond like this before. When Ego said, I've hated putting that tumor in your mother's head, he instantly, without hesitation, started shooting him. I mean, let's not pretend that that's out of character for him. I also want to point out that Strange had his vision of the 14 million possible outcomes before that happened. So he saw that happen, and probably, I'm guessing, in some of those universes, tried to stop Star-Lord, and something must have happened that we don't know about. So Strange, you want to argue, let that happen too. And as we know, when he gave the stone, that was the only way. So everything had to happen the way that it did. Tony going one-on-one with Thanos. Loved it. Totally badass. The way that they made the fight feel, especially with how powerful Thanos was, is that Tony never stood a chance. And you just see him like trying and trying, just getting beaten. He was fighting a losing battle. It actually reminded me of Cap, like this, I could do this all day. Like Tony knows logically he doesn't stand a chance, but he kept fighting anyway. The way Thanos talks to Tony, he puts that giant hand on his head, treats him like a child. He says, I understand you don't want this to happen. And in a way, even tries to comfort him. He's like, when I'm done, half the universe will still be alive. I did have a point here talking about how Strange willingly gives the stone, something he never would have done in a million years, something he never would have done in 14,604 years. Thanos using the Time Stone to bring back Vision so he could get the Mind Stone. It just adds to that feeling of hopelessness, how like the Battle of Wakanda, they're just so desperately trying to hold him back. They gave Wanda that like totally heartbreaking responsibility, since she was the only one that could do it, of killing Vision, somebody that she loved romantically, all to go through that, succeed, just to have it be totally pointless. The snap. I wonder if any of the futures that Doctor Strange saw, if Thor had actually decapitated Thanos right then. Did that never happen in 14,605 versions of the universe? Seeing everybody vanish was tough because I didn't know who was going to live and who was going to die. Fans of the comics knew what the snap was, but I mean, seeing like Black Panther disappear, seeing Bucky disappear, seeing Star-Lord, the Guardians, Spider-Man disappear. Some people have pointed out that Peter's Spidey sense would have been going off like crazy, that there's this imminent danger coming and he couldn't stop it, which just adds to his horror. I saw a video talking about this, but it complements Homecoming when Tony Stark says, and if you die, I feel like that's on me. And then for Peter to be there lying down and being like, I'm sorry, and then vanishing, and Tony left on Titan with nobody really, that's rough. His failure on Titan with Thanos resulting in Spider-Man disappearing really is this sun figure to him. I think that's what he regrets most of all. When Thanos is done and you see him like on this farm and he just looks out peacefully and like smiles, so much death, so much defeat, it just takes the wind out of your sails, man. And we had to wait a year to see the conclusion to that. I had some people comment saying that they resented the fact that we counted this as like a part 1 of 2. I understand how you could see it as like its own movie, and it most certainly is. But if you really even want to get meta about it, it was originally going to be Infinity War Part 1 and Infinity War Part 2. It was always going to be followed up. So in that way, I've always considered it to be one of a 2-part story. I understand how you think it could stand on its own, and it's a story about Thanos where he's the protagonist, and it's Thanos' happy ending. Like, I get that. So I can appreciate it on its own for that, but it definitely is a part 1. I'm sorry. Overall, my rating, I would give Infinity War a 9 out of 10. My only issues with it come down to the nitpicky of the CGI. I think it takes out some of the realism, and I think that scene with Spider-Man landing in the Iron Spider suit is my perfect example of that, where it's like, nothing I'm seeing is real. There's like this overuse of the mask like coming over and coming back off, and like that floating neck problem that you see where it's like they just put the actor's head on their CG bodies, and I just wish that there was some more practical stuff, I guess, in those bigger movies. At the same time, I understand that they produce them so quickly now that they really can't afford to do it, I don't think. And again, that's just a really small nitpick. Otherwise, man, this movie just hits me. It's great. I love it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Sorry I wasn't there in the My Friend Watches Infinity War for the first time. Hopefully you enjoyed this little addition video of just me talking about it. Leave me some comments down below letting me know what you think. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing if you want to see more fun content. On my Patreon, my producer and above tier gets early access to the My Friend Watches series. They had Ant-Man and the Wasp available on Wednesday, and I don't post them until Saturday, so that's like 2 or 3 days in advance. So that can be yours too. As always, guys, I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you in my next video. Take care.